Well, hello, welcome back to another mussel fishing film. Today is a slightly different video. You probably can't see it, but the sun is shining. It's the first week of April, which means a lot of us who own small boats, kayaks and little sibs are going to start to be thinking about getting out fishing. A lot of our boats have been sat there for 4 or 5 months not doing anything, and it's really crucial that before we go out we run through some safety checks, and not only that, some electronic checks, some tackle checks, some anchor checks, just so we're safe before we just throw all the gear in the car and hope for the best. So today's video, I'm going to run through all the things that I personally do, but after an extended period of time where the boat's been sitting on the driveway. There's quite a few things to get through. I'm going to vaguely run through it with you. I've already done some checks and I've already seen some problems, so we're going to talk about those ones first. So the first issue we had was a battery issue. I went to check on my VHF radio, my sonar and my bilge pump, and for some reason this big battery here, which was only new a 1.5 years ago, had totally failed. So it's totally discharged itself over winter, and that battery is now completely kaput. I mean, that's an expensive old battery, so that has to be replaced. So that was the first issue that I came across, was the battery was totally drained. I've tried everything to get it going again, it just will not. I will try a few other tricks at some point, but I think it has probably had it. So if we had turned up at the beach and we'd tried to use that battery, we would have had a problem straight from the off. So good job we checked it. I've put some other batteries in my battery box just to tie me through over the next month until we get a warranty claim on that one. That brought up some other problems. We've now snapped a wire with a positive electrical connection which goes onto the battery, so we've got to replace that. So let's go and do that now. So this down here is the battery box in question. This one has actually been Simpson Marine because I had to install this antenna properly. So this basically holds everything: our sonar, our bilge pump and our radio. All 3 crucial things really when you're on a boat. We've got our transducer there, which is all good. I've checked all that that's working, but let's open up the box and I'll show you what I mean. The problem is, it's when you've got a small boat, or a sib or a kayak, salt water gets all over everything. Now you can wash this like I did as soon as I get home and sort of put it in the winter mode if you like, and for some reason it still comes out gross a few months later. So if we open up our battery box, I'll bring you down here, zoom you in, you'll be able to see all these components here. Now the component that I'm talking about which is broken is, you can see this here. Now that there is an inline fuse to the sonar, and as you can see there is no connection which goes onto our battery, and that there is what connects onto our battery, and it should connect onto there. So that's snapped off, so that needs resoldering or crimping on. So we've got that to do now, so I'm going to go and do that and get back to you. Right, so you will have just seen me put a new connector onto the end of the live cable for my sonar. So that should all work now. Obviously we will run through the checks. All the others are absolutely fine. There's no corrosion there in a lot of those wires. But yeah, it's always worth checking your connectors and just making sure none of them have corroded, because that one would have ruined my my trip there. So that's now sorted. And yeah, we've just a little tidy up of the wires. We've just checked the radio ones. They're all good as well. I've got 2 batteries in here that I'm going to use for now. They're not as good as the one I just showed you, but they're still quite strong. They're 12 volt, 12 amp batteries. We've got 2 of those. I always like to have 2 or 1 big powerful one. More power is better than less. So that's all good. We've charged those up. We've done a health check on those as well. They hold charge. They're still good. So there's no issues with those batteries there. Obviously, once we replace the big battery, then we'll be good to go. The radio, we've given a radio check down at New Haven, so that's really good. Our fixed unit's all good. Our bilge pump works as well. So yeah, that is the electrical bits sorted. one thing I do advise is we check it first. So let's have a look. Now I've currently got these clips to hold the little O-ring connectors in place. Obviously because they're meant to go into a screw, but for now these will work. So I'm just going to connect up the negative. We hear a spark, so that's good. I'm just going to clamp it on there. Close our lid. And we should see the Garmin fire up. So the Garmin works, it all powers up. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to go onto my active captain app on my phone to make sure it's all downloaded and up to date as well, and the charts are all up to date, which can be quite important if you live in an area where the sand moves around and sandbanks shift and they're really shallow. I'm not too bad here, to be honest. It's not so important, but I might as well do it anyway and just install the update. So I'll go and install the update on the system, and then we will run through some other bits and bobs with you, because we've still got quite a few checks to do. Right, so the charts are now updated. They're now transferring from my phone to the plotter. So while that gets done, let's just talk about, yes, it's a boring subject, life jackets and safety kit. Now, what you want to do is you want to make sure that your canister is in date, because the CO2 canisters on here do expire. So you want to check your expiry date, and to do that, what you've got to do is unzip the life jacket and check the canister, which on mine is there. I don't need to do this. I got this service only 2 years ago. I know these ones last for about 5 years, so I've not got to worry about that. But what I do what I do is I do check for damage on the life jacket. I check that it's all zipped up properly. No toggles are missing, which they're not. So I do have a good look still. Obviously I've used this throughout the winter season, so this hasn't sat there and done nothing. Obviously I go out on bigger boats and friends' boats in the winter, so that looks all fine to me. All nice and neat. PLB, I just make sure that that's all attached nicely as well. That also will have an expiry date on it, well worth checking that. Again, I know that it's all not expired and I know that it's all in date, so that one will work absolutely fine still if I need it. Hopefully we won't, but I do like to make sure that I have everything checked. Another thing I also check is my handheld VHF radio. That's inside, and for some reason the battery, again a battery issue, is drained over the winter period. Even though it's been in my room upstairs, the battery's drained. So they're on charge as well. So we've got new batteries on the main box for the boat. We've got new batteries charging for the radios. So yeah, so far we have found a few issues, haven't we? But life jackets, check those. Dry suits is another thing. Check your dry suit. Have a little look through it. Check there's no holes in it. If you've got a dry suit, I've got to do that with mine because I haven't worn that for a while. Check the mice haven't gone through it. Check all these things before you go out. So we now come to the more of the business end, shall we say, the boat end. Now this has been sat here for a few months, haven't been used. What I do like to do is I just like to run through the hull, make sure it's all okay. Make sure the bungs are taken out, make sure all the water, anything that's accumulated in that period is drained. I'll also check all the attachments, all the rail blazer rod holders. I'll give it a big old clean, so this is going to have a big jet wash. And then what we're going to do is we're going to check the bearings on the trailer. We're going to pop them on a jack, and then we're just going to make sure that they're free spinning and they don't sound gritty and horrible. And if they need to, we'll put a little bit more grease in there. If there's a bit of play in the wheel, we'll change the bearing as well. I've checked these not too long ago because I had a little trip that I wanted to go out with a few weeks back. It didn't happen unfortunately because the weather changed, but I had all checked it. So bearings on the trailer, check those. I will show you quickly now how to check them. Right, so we've jacked up the boat with a little difficulty, but we have. Just going to spin the wheel. Just make sure we can't hear any grinding noises. I can't. what we're going to do is we're going to grab the wheel and we're going to try and move it. And there's no play in that whatsoever. So that's still absolutely fine. Free spinning. No horrible grinding noises. I would say that's an okay bearing. Obviously there's two wheels, so we'll go and check the other side, but we won't show you that. But yeah, that's how to check a bearing. Another thing is if you are driving the boat and you stop for fuel, just put your hand on that bearing. If it's hot, generally means it's going and it needs to be changed. But if it's cool, it means the bearing's doing a good job. So there's a grease nipple there on that wheel, so I might just pop a little bit of extra grease in there anyway, just for peace of mind. Right, so we are sort of not quite there, but we are getting there. And now we're going to move on to the engine, and this is obviously a fuel tank. What I really want to make sure is that the fuel connectors are good and they're not corroded. I can see there they're good. I can make sure that the lines are all clear, there's no holes in them. And just to make sure that everything does work properly, I'm going to put the engine on the back of the boat and I'm going to run it with fresh water. You might not have had a service, I suggest you do. I like to get my service done on my outboard around about March time. I've had to get it done a little bit earlier this year, just to make sure it stays in warranty, so about January time. But if you can, get it done just a little bit before you go out. That way you know all the oils are changed, a professional's run through it, they've checked everything, and hopefully it should be fine. But for my own peace of mind, I'm going to pop it on the back of the boat, I'm going to fill up some fresh water, and I'm going to run it. And then when it's running, we're going to check the telltale to make sure water's coming out. We're going to keep it running for a little while, just to make sure it doesn't get overheat or any alarms go off. So also, just to make sure that that cable is all free of any holes and any sort of damage, which in a box down there should be absolutely fine. Mice can't really get into it, but I do like to check it because, as you can see here, these clamps here are getting a little bit rusty. That's quite normal, to be honest. A lot of boats, that's what they're going to look like, but I just want to make sure there's no fuel leaking, because that could cause us a problem out at sea. So I'm going to get the engine out now and connect it all up and make sure it all works. So you'll see me here, I'm just rinsing out this bucket, making sure there's no debris in the bucket and any grit, and that way it's not going to go into the inlet of the engine and possibly clog it up. So I'm just getting that bucket nice and clean, and then we'll fill it up and run the engine. So we're now filling up the bucket with water, and down here are the inlets where the water gets sucked in and goes through the impeller and cools the engine. The inlets need to be fully covered before you start the engine. So here we're just inspecting the fuel lines. I've plugged the fuel line into the boat, and then I'm going to come over to the ventilation cap, open that up so we can allow fuel into the engine. And then we'll go over to the fuel bulb, we'll give that a pump, and as I'm pumping I'm looking for any fuel to come out of that line. That's not what we want. If we see that, that's bad. So I'm just inspecting it now, making sure the line's fully dry and we've got no leaks anywhere. So I've just run my checks there, I can't see any fuel leaking. Right, so we've very nearly filled up that bucket, and the cavitation plate is nearly the water is nearly up to that cavitation plate, so we're very nearly ready to turn on the engine. I'm going to run it for 5-10 minutes, and then what I'll do is I'll unplug the fuel line from the engine, and I will just let it tick over until eventually there's no fuel and it turns off. That's how I was told to look after this engine from the engineer a few years back, and that engine has never caused me issues with fuel or starting, anything like that, with fuel related issues. So I'm not going to argue with him, that's what we're going to do. So once that water's risen above those vents, we'll get it switched on. Issue number one, no water coming out of the telltale. Now, probably there's a slight blockage in that. Even though I've had it serviced, it's still sat in that shed for a couple of months. So I'm just going to pop something in that telltale pipe and start again. Right guys, so the telltale on this boat is just here, and I've just got a bit of 200-pound fishing wire. I'm just going to pop it in, just give it a little bit of a wiggle, just like that, just to make sure there's no debris in it and dust. And that's filling up again. See, I cannot stress enough, this is why you run checks, guys. We've had 2 battery problems with one of the handheld radios and the main thing, and now we've not got no water coming out our telltale, even though this engine was serviced about a month or so ago. Right, telltale cleaned. Let's see if the telltale works now. This is why we run the checks. And that, guys, is why we do our checks. We've got that working. As I said, it's probably just a little bit of debris inside, but just make sure the water coming out of that telltale's nice and cold. You don't want it hot. It can be sort of lukewarm, but you do not want it hot, and you do not want it warm. You just want it cold or tepid. That is one of the things I'll mention. Make sure your hose pipe doesn't come out of the bucket, because if it does, obviously there's water expelling from the back here, and that is gradually reducing the water level in your bucket, and if it goes below that cavitation plate, that engine cannot cool. So yeah, make sure you've got constant water flowing in the bucket when you're doing the engine. Right, I thought we'd come inside the workshop. So our charts are now carrying on updating. That's best part of 45 minutes, and it's only 60% done. So there's a big transfer there, and that is exactly why we do it now and not on the beach. You wouldn't want to be getting to the beach really desperate to launch on a nice flat calm sea, and you can't because you've got to wait for an update. This is why we do it all before we start the season. So I'm just trying to think if I've covered everything. No, I haven't actually. I've got a couple of extra little bits to add. Ratchet straps on the trailers, they are worth checking. So just make sure that they still pull tight and they don't unclip and unspring, because that has happened to me before on my kayak. Very nerve-wracking. Luckily I had 2 ratchet straps on board, otherwise the kayak probably would have ended up on the A27. So yeah, check your ratchet straps. It's always worth keeping a few spare in the car. Obviously check the tyres on the trailer as well. We've covered the bearings, we've covered the engine, we've covered the electronics, we've covered your VHF radios, we've covered life jackets, dry suits. Really, apart from that, you could if you use your anchor often, it's worth running the anchor out. Make sure all the anchor line is nice and neat, and there's no sort of kinks in the line, because you might want to replace it. You know, there's no knots in it either. But again, I'd done that not too long ago because I was going to go out for a trip, so I've actually done all this already a few months ago. But even so, we still had battery issues, and we still had a little engine issue as well. Not really an issue, but something that we needed to keep an eye on and fix. So I'm going to go for my tackle now, but that's not really important on this video. This video was really just to show you what I do after the winter, after any long period of time. What I call a long period of time might be different to you. If I don't go out for a month, that's a long time to me, and I like to run through everything as I'm putting things in the car. But with boating, the less you use it, the more likely it's going to break. So try and use it as much as you can. In winter, if you can run that engine and get your boat out, do. So yeah, I think we've covered everything. What I also do is with my spare fuel tank and my spare fuel cans, the little sort of the flume, if you like, the flute, the funnel, I'll give that a little clean with a rag just to make sure there's no dirt in it so it doesn't go into the fuel tank. But yeah, apart from that, I'll just check my buoys as well. If I'm taking out an anchor and I've got an Alderney ring and a buoy, I'll just make sure that's pumped up with air. That is a little job I've got to do actually, because one of them's a little bit flat, so I've got that to do. But apart from that, yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this little video. It was very different. It's not fishing related, obviously, but I do think it's going to help a few of you out. Things to check after the winter. If you've got anything you'd like to have seen in this video, or if you'd like to see anything in the future, or shown in more in depth, maybe how I change an electrical connector or whatever, please do give me a shout. Please subscribe to the video already. I'll tag a video for a beginner's guide to outboard engines up here, and also how to set up a SIB there. Cheers, take care.